One of the worst decisions that Konami's made in recent memory is essentially erasing the existence of PT, and folks tried to transfer over PT from PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5, but even that was something that Konami decided as reported here by news outlet Polygon back in November 6, 2020, around the time when PlayStation 5 launched. Polygon reported the bad news for prospective PlayStation 5 owners. Your existing download of PT cannot be transferred over to Sony's new console, nor is the game playable through backwards compatibility. And it's not because the game is incapable of running on PlayStation 5. Konami took the extra step to make sure that PT couldn't be played on PlayStation 5. Here's a strange thing, reports Polygon. At one point over the past few weeks before PlayStation 5 launched during the review period, it was both transferable and playable on PlayStation 5. I played PT on my PS5 in late October, the day after I received my review unit, but it appears when the PlayStation 5 launches on November 12th, it won't play PT through backwards compatibility. And you can see right here, this is the screen that you get when you try to play PT on PlayStation 5. This PS4 game isn't playable on PlayStation 5, though it is perfectly capable of doing so, even though PlayStation 4 backwards compatibility is native to PlayStation 5, and pretty much every PlayStation 4 game, except for like very specific ones, run flawlessly on the newer generation console. As Polygon reports, when it was playable, PT appeared to perform on PlayStation 5 just as it did on PlayStation 4. It's not enough for Konami to delist PT completely instead of preserving it. It's not enough that Konami made it so that even people who redeemed PT prior to its removal from the PlayStation Store aren't able to download it. They also blocked it from PlayStation 5 for those who do still have their file downloaded. So, of course, people on the internet have been looking for ways to take matters into their own hands. So what people have been waiting for was for the day that PlayStation 5 would be jailbroken to essentially make it so that you can find circumvention surrounding Konami's restrictions of PT on PlayStation 5. And we began to hear some rumblings that a PlayStation 5 jailbreak may be imminent back in late September of 2022, when Twitter user Spectre, who is also a modder/developer, said if when the IPv6 exploit is released, post-exploitation is not as easy as PlayStation 4, homebrew will take a lot of effort, and yada yada yada, kind of going into technical details about something that was upcoming. And then he revealed back in October 2nd, 2022, for those interested in a WebKit PS5 kernel exploit implementation, it's on track to be ready soon. Stay on PS5 version 4.03. Just a few hours later that day, Spectre released the exploit that would pave the road to PlayStation 5 jailbreaking. He tweeted, "Here it is. Thanks to everyone mentioned earlier. Be warned, stability is not great, something to be improved on for sure." Modders have already been making strides on that front. Not only did they make it so that the exploit is supported by not just PS5 version 4.03, but also 4.5. A few days after, on October 8th, Spectre released a 1.01 version of the PS5 kernel exploit, featuring some updates that makes the jailbreaking better, with Spectre reporting that the stability of this exploit is now at around 80 to 90%. This is alongside myriad improvements and fixes that are highlighted here in the patch notes. And already going to websites like wololo.net, you'll find that the exploit is live, and no doubt people who managed to preserve their console on version 4.03 or 4.5 are beginning to experiment. Chief among those experimenting is modder extraordinaire Lance McDonald. This guy's hacked all kinds of games, so you can do things like free cam mode, where you can move the camera around anywhere, so you can see sort of the tricks and the techniques that were used by developers to create certain scenes or certain games. I mean, he delved deep into PT and its assets and that final Silent Hills reveal, which happened in real time, and so we were able to get a peek of like that town shown in that end trailer. And he even managed to make it so that Bloodborne can run at 60 FPS by creating his own 60 FPS patch, among many other things. And it didn't take long for Lance McDonald to experiment with this exploit that has paved the road to the PlayStation 5 being jailbroken. Beautiful, he calls it. And right here you can see a demonstration of the, essentially the, not the jailbreaking process, but the jailbroken console kind of running things, running the code that it needs to run and all these things to be able to perform certain activities that you shouldn't be able to normally if your PlayStation 5 isn't jailbroken, like installing your own custom packages via this debug settings menu And the game that Lance McDonald installs here, you can see, is none other than PT. After it finishes installing, you'll find a little notification here saying that PT is ready to play. Now, while he managed to install PT on PlayStation 5 at the time, back in October 2nd, he still had problems running it. He tweeted in a follow-up, "People seem to misunderstand. I own PT on my PlayStation Network account legally. I was able to use the debug menu to install PT from a USB stick, circumventing both the PlayStation Network store blacklist placed upon that game and also the fact that the game was deleted by Konami. However, a second blacklist exists on the PlayStation 5 itself that stops you actually launching the game even if you manage to install it and have a license to run it. There is no way yet to modify or destroy the blacklist." But of course, these kinds of obstacles don't stop modders and hackers. They take it as a challenge accepted type of situation. And Lance McDonald actually managed to fulfill the challenge and get PT not just installed on PlayStation 5 via jailbreaking methods, but also get it running on PlayStation 5. And the amazing thing about his method is that he managed to install PT and get it running on a non-jailbroken PS5. You still need a jailbroken PS5 for this method, but the final result is PT running on a non-jailbroken official PlayStation 5. Lance begins by laughing his ass off and saying, "I got PT working on a fully updated, non-jailbroken PS5. Eat shit, Konami. Eat shit, Konami, indeed. It's borderline criminal that something as special as PT is not being preserved." And while I get that part of the reason is probably the fact that PT is technically a marketing material for a canceled game, Silent Hills, it doesn't change the fact that the PT experience is loved widely across the gaming community, and for Konami to make no efforts whatsoever to preserve what many believe to be a very special, bite-sized game, a really unique experience, and not only that, for them to go out of their way to ensure that this game's existence is completely erased and blocked from being playable across platforms and consoles where it should be playable on, it's just a complete disservice to one of the coolest things Konami's ever released and published. So yeah, they get no sympathy from me when people say things like "eat shit, Konami," for the way they've treated PT. This console, Lance continues, has never been jailbroken. I was able to transfer a hacked PS4 emulator from a different jailbroken PS5 using USB backup and unlock the game on my main PlayStation 5. And you can see a demonstration of this. Here's PT running on the PlayStation 5, and he eventually backs out to show that the menu is, in fact, PlayStation 5's, and that the game is running natively on the console with no issues whatsoever. He's showing off the console version right here to show that this is, in fact, not jailbroken. Mwah. Chef's kiss. And this is why emulation, jailbreaking, hacking, modding, and all of these things, why they're so important. So many people associate things like emulation and jailbreaking with piracy, and while, yeah, there is that side of things, there's also the other side that is actually a positive force where games like PT are able to be preserved and able to be played because you've got hackers and modders going out of their way to ensure that the software doesn't vanish forever just because of Konami's whims or similar companies' whims. PT is just too compelling of a bite-sized experience for it to get lost in time forever, and because of methods like these, it may be possible for people here, now in the present, and in the future to experience PT for those who haven't tried it out yet. Lance elaborated further with, the gist of it is that you need to own PT legitimately on your PlayStation account, and you need to have your PlayStation Network account activated on a jailbroken PS5 and on a normal, fully updated PlayStation 5. So it's still a complicated method. This is definitely not something that mainstream audiences are going to try to do. I mean, you need two PS5s, one jailbroken, one not, and PlayStation 5s are hard to find as it is. And you need to have redeemed and downloaded PT prior to its removal from the PlayStation Store. So there's still plenty of obstacles and roadblocks to get over, but this is certainly better than nothing, and hopefully as the PlayStation 5 homebrewing scene continues to develop, the process of playing PT on PlayStation 5 will become gradually easier and more accessible, because PT is one of those, I think, historic games that you absolutely want to preserve. PT isn't just some random game that nobody cares about, and even the lack of preservation for, the bad games or the whatever games, even that to me is tragic because it's still part of gaming history. But when something that is genuinely historic and so beloved like PT has the chance of getting lost in time because of corporate BS, see, that to me really sucks, which is why I'm fully in support of endeavors like Lance McDonald's here when he's showing people how to do this, and the fact that it's doable and folks like Spectre here, who are geniuses, who I don't know how any of this works, but they're going out of their way to make it possible to do stuff like this. But for those who don't have access to PT, at least you do have a Silent Hill 2 remake to look forward to. And to be fair, Silent Hill F, the new game that they showed during their Silent Hill transmission, I got pretty hyped during the stream by how good that looks, the aesthetic of it, the direction that it's going in, some of the visuals, and some of the crazy things going on in there. I feel like it has a lot of potential. So at the very least, Silent Hill as a series is seeing some form of revival, and hopefully the execution of these Silent Hill projects meet the joy that people have at seeing that Silent Hill is returning in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully this all won't turn out to be a massively disappointing endeavor. But even with those games, there was just something real special about PT and Silent Hills, made by Kojima himself, who has a very unique creative mind that is so well suited for horror, as evidenced by PT. And so for Silent Hills, for that to be canceled, and for that to, never pan out, for us to never know what that could have turned out to be, it still hurts me to this day. It's still something of a tragedy. But at the very least, if we can preserve PT, that'd be very ideal, in my opinion. But that's just one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on PlayStation 5 being jailbroken, and whether you hope to be able to transfer PT to your PlayStation 5 and keep that preserved in your new console. Share your thoughts below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.